Funding for Election 2014 coverage is provided in part by AARP, a nonprofit, nonpartisan association, 86,000 strong in North Dakota. AARP fights on real issues that matter to you and your family. And by the members of Prairie Public.
Welcome to Prairie Public's continuing coverage of Election 2014. I'm moderator Matt O'Lean. This is the debate for Minnesota's 7th District Congressional seat. My guests today are State Senator Tori Westrum from Elbow Lake and Congressman Collin Peterson. Based on a coin flip, it was determined that Mr. Westrum will go first on opening statement. They get a 1-minute open, 1-minute closing statement, and we'll have debate in between. Mr. Westrum, go ahead, 1-minute opening statement.
Well, thank you, Matt, for the opportunity today. My name's Tori Westrum, and as many of you know, I lost my eyesight in a farm-related accident at the age of 14. Today, I serve in our state senate, run a small business in my hometown with my wife, and I am the proud father of 3 beautiful children. I believe our country is headed in the wrong direction, but you can't change the game if you don't change the players at the table. On Congressman Peterson's watch, we have seen our national debt skyrocket. Obamacare passed by Democrat leadership. The Keystone Pipeline still not built because of President Obama's administration. And cap and trade legislation passed through the House with Congressman Peterson's vote. I know we can do better. As your next congressman, I will dedicate the can-do attitude and perseverance I've had my entire life to representing our Minnesota values in Washington.
Okay, Collin Peterson, 1-minute opening statement.
Well, thank you, Matt, and thank Prairie Public Television for doing this debate. And I want to thank my constituents for their support and the honor of representing them for these 24 years. We've got a lot of positive things done for my district, one of them being the farm bills that we passed in 2008, 2014, when I was chairman and then ranking member. They were bipartisan bills, and some people say, and I believe, the 2 best farm bills that we've ever had in this country. We've also been able to do things like build new airports for some communities, roads, outpatient VA clinics in places like Alexandria and Bemidji and Montevideo and Fergus. And one of the important things that I've been able to accomplish when I've been in office is to get funding for our rural critical access hospitals. We have 39 of them in the district, and some of them wouldn't be there without the funding that we got back in 2003. So I've appreciated the support. And I look forward to working on a bipartisan basis as I have before in the future.
Okay, let's get to as many issues as we can. Let's first start off with the campaign itself. Lots of ads floating around, lots of money in this race this time, a lot of counter charges back and forth. So I'd like to start by giving you both an opportunity to respond or make statements on some of the things that have been said, and then we'll move on to other issues. And Collin Peterson, you go first on this issue.
Well, I think I am one of those that deplore these negative ads, I think, on both sides. And I don't like the fact that you've got outside people coming in here, bringing in money that nobody knows where it comes from. And it's, it just feels like the outside has almost taken over this race in this district. Now there's, what's being done to me, I'm being attacked for doing my job. I use an airplane to get around the district. I get mileage, so much a mile, set by the General Services Administration, not by the House, that any federal employee gets, same as you would for a car. And if you take what I've spent, it amounts to $12,000 a year that I get reimbursed for my airplane, travel in this huge district. Some people would say that's a bargain. I've also been accused of going to Las Vegas. Well, I've only been there twice, and I don't really like the place. And I've been there to receive an award from a hunting group one time, and to go to the Disabled Veterans Convention another time. So, they're distorting things. This district is a huge district. It's going to cost anybody a fair amount of money to get around this district. And, if I had my way, we wouldn't have these outside ads involved.
Okay, Tori Westrum, response?
Well, Matt, I am no fan of these negative ads either. The way they are distorting my record and background, I don't support that either. It's troubling to see this kind of outside money trying to attack and negatively portray candidates like myself. And our campaign has been focused on a positive message. We continue to travel this district. We've been to all 38 counties multiple times across this district. It is a big district. And we are talking to the constituents about what their issues and concerns are. And we continue to hear about the concerns about Obamacare not working. The Affordable Care Act has become the Unaffordable Care Act for so many farmers and small businesses. That's what I'm worried about. That's what I'm working on. That's why I'm running for Congress. We don't have a Keystone Pipeline built yet. We have a rail car shortage that our farmers are dealing with. And this is what we're focused on and will continue to be focused on the next 2 weeks till the election.
Okay, let's move to our first topic, and that's agriculture and the Farm Bill, very important for the 7th District. We recently had a Farm Bill enacted that Congressman Peterson already mentioned. What are each of your thoughts on the recently passed Farm Bill, good and bad, and how does it affect the 7th District? Mr. Westrom, you go first this time.
Well, Matt, the Farm Bill that passed this year, I would have supported this bill. Certainly there's always things you could try to do better or fix, but our farmers are very important in this district. I grew up on a dairy farm. I have an agriculture background, and so agriculture is very important. I understand agriculture as somebody that grew up on a dairy farm and with an ag background. I have been a strong voice for agriculture in the state legislature, and I'll continue to be a strong, ardent voice in Washington, D.C., because agriculture is such an important part of our economy and so valuable and important to rural Minnesota that we have got to continue to keep strong agriculture policy. But some part of that is also getting big government out of the way, not having an out-of-control EPA like we see under the Obama administration, trying to redefine navigable waters. These are issues that our farmers shouldn't have to deal with. Get relief to the railroads so they can haul grain again and not have to pay a premium to get it hauled just because President Obama and the administration want to block the Keystone Pipeline. These are important issues that I'll go to Washington and fight for.
Okay, Colin Peterson, response?
Well, obviously, I support the Farm Bill. I was the ranking member this year when we did this bill, and worked with Frank Lucas, the chairman. And some people say without the two of us there, I wouldn't have gotten done. And it took too long, but it's not easy to get anything done in this day and age in Congress. So we got a good bill that was good across the board. And when people hear about the Farm Bill, they think it's about farming. And it is. We got a new dairy program. We got a new safety net that's based on whether you actually need it or not based on some historical situation. But in addition, we got a conservation title that was widely supported across the board by everybody. Big new investments in conservation, some of them going to the valley for flood retention. Also rural development, other parts of this bill that are very good for our part of the world and for rural America. So this was a good bill. It was hard fought, but at the end it was bipartisan, and if everybody operated like the Ag Committee, the Congress and the country would be better off.
Okay, Tory Westrom, response, go ahead.
Well, Matt, one thing, the bill did take 2 years longer than it originally was supposed to. They usually are set for 5 years, and it now passed 2 years later. One of the things you asked about, that could be improvement. A big part of the ag bill is not agriculture; it's other supports. And I know one of the topics that was addressed was how to improve job opportunities for those that might be in a hard time in their life. And that might be an area that Bill Clinton and the Republicans in the 90s worked on welfare to work requirements. And so provisions like that, I think, could improve those programs as well.
Colin Peterson, final response, and we'll move on to our next issue.
Well, there could have been better outcomes in some of the areas, but in the nutrition area, that's what killed the bill in July or in June, was the amendment that was brought to the floor after that we had made a deal that there wasn't going to be any further amendments, and that took us another 8 months to get the bill done. So we wish we could have avoided that, but at the end of the day, we got the bill accomplished, and it was a good bill. It'll be good for us out into the future.
Okay, let's move to gridlock in Washington. It would seem the current Congress is possibly the least popular Congress in U.S. history. Not much legislatively to point to, although there was the Farm Bill, as you mentioned. What's the answer to the partisan divides we have in Washington, and is this going to be the status quo moving forward? Colin Peterson, you start this time.
Well, I think, as I said, the Ag Committee is a good example of what can be done if you work on a bipartisan basis. And this didn't happen by accident. This happened because Frank Lucas and I, every day when we went over to the House floor, we would sit down and talk together and figure out what it was we needed to do to work for him, to work for me, to work for our people that were on the committee. And because of that, we were able to move through all of these obstacles that we had in place. We have, in some of these other committees, they can't even, the ranking member and chairman can't even talk together. And that's part of the problem. Now, we have some glimpses of sunlight, I guess, in the Transportation Committee. Bill Schuster, a good guy, is working with Nick Rahal. And I think they're working to get a new long-term transportation bill, which we need very bad. Tim Walz over in the Veterans Committee, they came up with a response to the problem that we were having in the VA, which is a good thing moving into the future. Not only do we have these outpatient clinics, we also are now going to let people go to their own doctor if they're a certain amount of miles away from a clinic, which will help a lot of folks in the future. So we've made some bipartisan efforts here that are in the right direction, but we certainly need to do a lot more.
Tori Westrom, response.
Well, Matt, the gridlock in Washington, as I said, you don't change Washington if you send the same players back to the table. And so that's why I'm running for Congress, so we can bring new players to the table, fresh leadership to Washington, fresh perspective from Minnesota and across the country, and work on the gridlock. You have to work in a bipartisan manner, come up with solutions, and not care who gets the credit. I've done that in the state legislature, and that's the way I would operate. But one of the things is you also can't have such liberal leadership that we've seen in the House of Representatives under Nancy Pelosi. Her agenda does not match the District 7 agenda here in western Minnesota. When you have leaders like that so far to the side, to the left, it's hard to get things done. And so one of the things as a congressman, I will not support Nancy Pelosi, but I would ask the congressman, he supported Nancy Pelosi 6 times in the past 12 years. Would you support Nancy Pelosi again for Speaker of the House?
Okay, Colin Peterson, response.
Well, first of all, she has to decide if she's going to seek that position. We don't know that at this point. But you have to work with who's there. And part of how we got things done on the Ag Committee was we worked with our leadership, and Frank worked with his leadership. John Boehner has never supported a farm bill, So it wasn't easy to get him to come to the table and help us, but at the end he did, because I worked with him on the dairy thing and we worked out a compromise that he could live with. Nancy Pelosi doesn't have a single farmer in her district. Her district didn't want to cut food stamps. This bill cut food stamps, and Nancy Pelosi not only voted for the bill, she actually helped round up votes, as did John Boehner. So that's what you have to do. You have to go work with people that are there and make things work. And you can't get into this attitude, well, your partisan position is right and everybody else's is wrong. And that's what's wrong in Washington. And I'm the third most likely guy to vote against his party in either party in the whole United States Congress. So, I don't know how you can do any better than that.
Okay, I need to get final response from Tori Westrom, then we'll move
Colin,
to foreign policy.
Congressman Peterson, I've got to believe you could find a better leader in your party and to be the Speaker of the House than Nancy Pelosi. She is what's delivered us Obamacare, and by voting for her, you enable her to have that power and leadership. She blocked the Keystone Pipeline. She's working to redefine the navigable waters, and that's just not consistent with our district.
Well, I didn't vote for Obamacare, and I have worked just as hard as anybody to get the Keystone Pipeline and the waters of the U.S. resolved. And, you can find people on your side of the aisle in Washington that are just as out of the mainstream as people on our side. And that's the problem. You got the Tea Party folks on one side, the liberal Democrats on the other, and that's part of why we have the gridlock in Washington.
Okay, this has got to be the last word from Mr. Westrom, then we move on.
You didn't answer the question exactly, but you're suggesting that I wouldn't vote for them as leadership, which I would agree, but you've done the opposite and voted for a left wing of your party.
That's who was offered up, and that's the way the system works. You have to work with who's there.
Okay, last word, Tori?
Well, I think we can do better than Nancy Pelosi, and I won't vote for Nancy Pelosi as the next congressman.
All right, let's move on to our next topic. This actually comes from our debate co-sponsor, AARP. How would you protect Social Security and Medicare for today's seniors and also for future generations? And Tori, you go first this time.
Well, the Medicare, Matt, and the Social Security, those programs are very important. Certainly they're a big part of the federal budget. First of all, I would start by saying we need to protect those that have paid in, the seniors that are using the system, and near retirement. This is an issue that needs bipartisan solutions, not just finger pointing. You need Democrats to help come up with ideas. You need Republicans to come up with ideas. Because it's that big of a problem to solve, you need both parties at the table working together in earnest on something that can preserve these for the younger generations. Because if we do nothing, in about 20 years, the programs will go broke. And so we know that that is a problem that we have to deal with. And so you can look at solutions. Currently, the Social Security age is slowly, incrementally going up. It's to 65 years and 10 months right now. And there's been proposals, bipartisan, that talk about incrementally for younger generations, slowly moving up the age to 67, 68, and helping preserve these programs. But again, I say you keep it intact and you don't cut it for the people that are on it. You preserve it so they have it to rely on, that they've paid in, as well as the ones near retirement. But only solutions that can be bipartisan and both parties that are willing to work hard to find a solution, because we know it will be broke in 20 years otherwise.
Okay, Colin Peterson, response.
Well, in the case of Social Security, there's a pretty simple solution to get a long-term solution on Social Security, and that is to take the cap off of the earnings on Social Security. Under the Medicare system, it's 1.65% tax that you pay into Medicare, and that's paid on all wages, whether it's 100,000 or $1 million. But that's not the case with Social Security. There's a cap of, I believe it's 107,000 or something like that at this time. So I am in favor of raising that cap or potentially taking it off. If you took it off completely, you would solve the Social Security problem for basically forever. And I think, you know, if people are earning wages, they should be paying into the system. So that's what I think we should be looking at in Social Security. In the Medicare area, we've seen the cost of Medicare, the increases that we've been seeing have come down significantly. Not exactly sure what's going on within the system, but we are changing the way that we're paying, going away from a procedure payment system situation, going to more outcomes. And it seems like that's holding down the cost, and so the longevity of the Medicare system is now extended, or they're saying it's going to last considerably longer than what they thought. So I don't think we need to make any changes at this time in the Medicare system. I think we need to protect it the way it is. And I think we need to see how this whole healthcare thing is going to play out before we make any changes there.
Okay, do you want to respond, Tori Westrom?
Well, I would, Matt. The one thing, how this current Obamacare is going to play out, as the congressman talked about, all you have to do is travel the district and talk to the small business owners that are getting renewal notices for their employees. They're seeing 40, 50, 60, 80% increases. I just talked to a person in my home county that's 2 weeks ago at the coffee shop, and they said they're seeing over 100% increase because of Obamacare. And so that is a big concern, and why I'm pushing that we need to repeal and fix Obamacare, different from the congressman, but this, we don't have to wait for it to play out. We've waited 4 years, nothing's been fixed, and it's not playing out very well, Matt.
Okay, last word
and
on
the
this,
reason it
Colin
hasn't
Peterson.
been fixed is because the Republican Party has taken the position we have to repeal the whole bill. And I didn't vote for this bill. And the reason I didn't vote for it is the reason I didn't vote for it is because I read the bill, which a lot of people didn't. And I'd vote against it again if it was the same bill. But there's parts of it that are, good and that are working. And the way things are going now, you're not going to get any place by repealing the whole thing. You're not going to be able to get back the good parts of it into the law. So what needs to be done is we need to take, the parts that aren't working, the employer mandate, the individual mandates, some of these taxes on medical devices and so forth, and work to get those under control or get rid of them. And I've told John Boehner and others that, I've got 60 Democrats that'll work with the Republicans to fix these things, but they've been unwilling to do it because it's a political issue. It's all about repealing it, when it should be, let's keep what's good and let's fix the things that are not good.
Okay, I need to get to foreign policy before we're done. You can address that in your closing statement unless you want to keep going on this.
Well, I would like to just briefly.
Go ahead,
if
and then
we can
Colin
talk
gets the
about,
last word.
Obamacare. You can keep the good things and put it in a rewrite.
But how
You've
would you
had
get it
4
passed?
years
How
to
would you get it passed?
repeal it.
How would you get it passed?
Well, the problem is your leadership, Nancy Pelosi, Harry
No, it's
Reid,
not.
and the Senate
Well,
won't address repealing
I
it.
can't
They want
control. I can't control the Senate. So the Senate,
But you can control your leadership. But you haven't fixed it in 4 years.
Well, I'm not. I'm not in charge of the House of Representatives. All I can do is try to be helpful. And the problem is that the Senate was never going to take this up anyway. The president would veto it. So it's not realistic what's going on here. We should have been at the table 2 years ago working on this, but we haven't done it. That's the problem.
You mentioned you voted against it. That
I
was
did.
4 years ago. You've multiple times voted to keep it the law of the land.
Because it was a 100% repeal.
And you don't want to support
No,
repealing it. You've
what are you
said-
going to do with the people on pre-existing conditions? The
Put 'em in
people
a
that
new
have.
bill and-
Well, then how would you get it passed? How would you get that passed?
You'd work bipartisanly, work on pre-existing conditions, students that are up to 26.
Then
Those
why
are
don't
all
you work
provisions-
bipartisanly to fix the problems and leave the good parts in place? Why wouldn't you do
Well,
that?
we can do that too. But you can't give up and say we'll never get it repealed.
Well, I
because
didn't say we'll never get a repeal. What I said is, in the current climate, I am skeptical that you'd be able to keep the good parts of it.
Okay, need
But
to
I'm
move
not
on. I do
willing to
need to
go
move
there.
on to foreign
in the
policy,
meantime,
and
we've
Colin
got
gets the
people that
last
are
word on
paying
this one.
huge premium increases because it's not repealed.
We do need to get to foreign policy. A lot of things going on in the world right now. ISIS in Syria and Iraq. President Obama has been criticized heavily by the Republican Party for his handling of these situations. What are the answers to these tough situations? Colin Peterson, you go first this time. Tori, you'll have the last word on this issue.
Well, there's been debate, for the last couple of years about whether to arm the rebels in Syria, and the decision was made in the Congress at that point not to move ahead with that because we were not sure that how we could vet these different groups and be sure that these weapons weren't getting into the wrong hands. As ISIS developed, I think people rethought that, and so before we left, we did pass a bill to allow for the arming of the rebels in Syria once they've been vetted. Now having said all that, I think the administration waited too long, and I think some people in Congress on the committees were also waiting to kind of see how this developed, and now we're responding. But it's a very difficult situation. And, you've got Turkey not cooperating, you've got some of our other allies that have different ideas about what the outcome is here. So there's no clear path about how you resolve this. The one thing I would say is that the people in this district, I think one thing that I hear loud and clear is they are not interested in putting boots on the ground in Iraq or in Syria.
Okay, I need a one-minute response from you, Tori, and then we'll move to closing statements. Go ahead.
And
on
Matt,
ISIS.
the foreign policy issue in ISIS has gotten out of control, unfortunately. Under President Obama's leadership, we have seen a failure to recognize the threat early on. It's too bad he's waited so long and not been taken this threat seriously, because the problems or the solutions to the problem now are probably going to be worse choices than if he would have recognized and done something more serious 6 or 12 months ago or before. And so it's going to be important, though, that we take steps to make sure we don't have terrorists coming on our grounds, getting into our borders, and harming Americans. And so we need to be very clear and take this threat seriously and do what we can to eliminate this ISIS threat over there and not have Americans in harm in our borders. And so hopefully President Obama will recognize the threat and take it more seriously, because it's been a pattern of incompetence, and that's been a concern. And I think the voters in this district are concerned about that. And as we hear from voters, they don't want to see boots on the ground.
Okay.
And when you don't recognize the threat serious early on, it's a problem.
I do need to get to closing statements. It goes very fast. Congressman Peterson, you go first on closing. Tori Westrom will go last.
Well, thank you, Matt, and thanks for tuning in, and thank Prairie Public again. I want to tell a story in closing. The fellow named Bill Thomas, a Republican from California, was chairman of the Ways and Means Committee back in 2003. And he had a bill to modernize Medicare. He came to me because he couldn't get any Democrats on the committee to work with him. And we developed a relationship, and I was interested in this bill because I wanted to get funding for my rural hospitals under this critical access hospital provision. So we worked on this, and we came up with a bill, and we got $38 billion in the bill for critical access hospitals. They got 101% reimbursement out of this bill. The problem is, when it got to the floor, we were short of votes. So they held the thing up for 3 hours. At the end of the day, we finally got the votes. It passed 216 to 215. We had 7 Democrats vote for it, and 19 Republicans vote against it. The point is that when you get into that kind of a situation, that's where true bipartisanship shows. And when I was able to get in and make my case,
Okay, that's
where
1
experience
minute.
shows.
That is 1 minute. Thank you. Tori Westrom, 1 minute closing.
Well, thank you, Matt, for the opportunity, and to the viewers. When I was 14, lying in a hospital bed, just after the doctors had told me I would likely never see again, I could have never imagined I would be up here running for the privilege to serve my community in Congress. I was fortunate. I had parents and others who wouldn't let me give up. And by the next year, I was right back at work baling hay on our family farm. That experience has taught me 2 things. First, there's never a time to make excuses. And second, there's always a way to get things done. Like most Minnesotans, I'm tired of hearing excuses out of Washington. Our children's future depends on reining in the out-of-control spending, repealing and fixing Obamacare, and stopping the government overreach that's hurting our economy. Even I can see the mess in Washington. My name is Tori Westrom. I am asking for your vote. I am ready to take on these
And that's
challenges,
1 minute.
and I'd appreciate
Thank
your
you.
support.
Thank you both for being here, and thank you for watching Prairie Public's continuing coverage of Election 2014. So long.
Funding for Election 2014 coverage is provided in part by AARP, a nonprofit, nonpartisan association, 86,000 strong in North Dakota. AARP fights on real issues that matter to you and your family. And by the members of Prairie Public.